And we are live. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
Welcome, everyone, to season 3. It's finally here, and the Detroit Piston season starts out today against the Indiana Pacers. So we are excited to bring you season 3, all kinds of different content, the regular podcast to be posted each and every week, vlogs as we go to Detroit time and time again through the season. Maybe some 2K content may pop up here and there. So just buckle in, get ready for season 3 of Revved Up 906. We're excited to keep bringing you Detroit Pistons content. If you haven't yet, make sure to like and subscribe and turn on your post notifications button. That is the bell on our YouTube profile. So make sure to hit that so you know when we are posting Detroit Pistons content. If you haven't checked it out yet, check out the link in our YouTube bio or in the description below to Grind Clothing Co.'s website. They are our official merch sponsor. So if you want to rep your favorite Detroit Pistons podcast, make sure to buy some of our merch, all kinds of different design options. We will also be having some new design options for our season 3 series. So just be on the lookout and keep clicking that link each and every week so you can kind of see the different designs that may pop up. And then also make sure to subscribe, follow Grind Clothing Co. on Instagram. That link is also below. So make sure to hit that and go check out Grind Clothing Co.'s designs and every merch drop they've had. Different designs for everyone's different tastes. Without further ado, let's get into episode 1 of season 3. And me and Ryan just wanted to take some time to kind of recap this preseason because a lot of different storylines happened, different players that emerged that we were hoping to emerge. Some players kind of fall to the wayside, and we hope to see them hopefully get better as this start of the season quickly is approaching. And so the Pistons started their season 3-2. And one of the standout players I wanted to highlight today was Jaden Ivey. And one of the things we saw early last season with the new coach, Monty Williams, is he limited Ivey's development, prioritizing Killian Hayes and putting him in the starting lineup. And that kind of messed with Jaden Ivey's confidence. And we kind of saw that his confidence, slowly regained throughout the season as Killian Hayes kind of fell to the wayside. And we eventually saw Jaden Ivey start again. But what we saw with JB Bickerstaff in the preseason is he gave a boost to Jaden Ivey early, and it showed on the court. His stats through preseason were 15 points per game, 61% from the field, 52% from beyond the arc, and 85% from the free throw line. And Ryan, one of the things we've talked since, Jaden Ivey's tenure with the Pistons started was his 3-point percentage, his shooting from the field. That was always a worry for us. We know he can get us the 15 points per game per se, but it was the efficiency that we were a little worried about. Ryan, what does this mean for the Pistons team as a whole when Jaden Ivey is shooting so efficiently, and we see him kind of being a shoulder to lean on for this Pistons offense? It proves to be big for the Pistons, right?
Yeah, it is. It takes a lot of pressure off of Cade. Cade doesn't necessarily have to be the guy converting all the time. There's no pressure really on Jalen Duren. Less pressure on Tobias Harris, etc. The list goes on. It really benefits everyone when Ivey's hot. There's stretches from last year where Ivey was going on a tear from time to time that Cade didn't necessarily have to do anything, and we were getting results. Whenever you can have your 1A, 1B, the Cade Cunningham playing well at a high level, good things will happen. We made note of like the efficiency, like that's a big thing for us. And then you bring up his defense. His defense last year took a jump up. It progressed, but I really feel like his defense as a whole and his shooting as a whole has
Yeah,
gotten better in just a short period of time with JB Bickerstaff at the helm. Because what we saw in preseason with Ivy compared to how he finished off last season, it's a whole new player. He's gotten even better than what he was at, and that's exciting to me. And then not only that, but he's bulked up a lot. He's added a lot more weight and muscle to him. And his
totally.
frame used to be more on the slim side, but now it's all like muscular and built. And I think that's going to have a lot of benefits, especially since Ivy, who's already fast, is driving to
Yeah.
the rim and he's not necessarily going to miss a shot now. He's going to finish strong and get that lay in. But yeah, efficiency has been big for him this preseason. Him on the defensive side of the ball has been even better than last year. I think the
Yeah.
dynamic of offensive defense out of him takes pressure off of Cade and others to really step up their games from time to time. And I think that's going to be big for us this season.
Well, when the season ended in early this year, we had a couple things we knew what to expect. We knew that Cade Cunningham was going to be kind of the center of the offense and be able to get players involved and find players around the arc to rack up assists. We knew Jalen Duren was going to be this dominant rebounder. We knew Isaiah Stewart was getting better at the 3-point shotting, adding another dynamic to this Pistons team that we needed. But the biggest question mark that we always ask to the viewers and to ourselves is, what can we expect from Jaden Ivey? We saw him have a great rookie year, have a bit of a sophomore slump. What are we to expect in this third season? And I think what we saw in preseason is what I hope that we can expect from him. And it really seemed that JB Bickerstaff has installed this new energy in Jaden Ivey. And you mentioned it, we saw him play really good on the defensive end, getting in the passing lane and kind of showing us what, at one time Hamidou Diallo did for the Pistons. It just got in the passing lane, and went for those fast breaks and turn into that easy offense for Jaden Ivey. And we saw that, and that's something that we in the past really questioned ourselves and questioned Troy Weaver on. Okay, why did he bring Jaden Ivey in? Okay, yeah, he's okay offensively, but he can't do anything defensively, and that doesn't help the Pistons. Where I think we're seeing ourselves kind of grasp on what Jaden Ivey needed, and that was time. He needed time to try to find his role, find his place on the defensive end. It's hard when you're alongside Cade Cunningham at the arc and on the defensive end, and Cade Cunningham kind of struggles to block out players and do these little things, and so that kind of maybe put the little bit of pressure on Jaden Ivey to kind of feel like he needs to get in the passing lanes and force this, and then with forcing defense, he gets fouls. And so I think Jaden Ivey coming into his third season, one, he's a dad. He's entered this new mature part of his life, and I think we're seeing that on the basketball court as well. As far as from what we saw from Jaden Ivey, obviously, like I said, we saw the defense get better. We saw the offense get a little bit more efficiently for him. Is this the Jaden Ivey, this version we saw in preseason, the Jaden Ivey that's going to have to lead us to a 500 mark or a play-in tournament? Is this the kind of play we need for him for the Pistons to be a play-in team, or do we need to see a little bit more? And do you think JB Bickerstaff can unlock that in him?
I think we need to see a little bit more. Obviously, what he's shown us so far is a whole new and improved Jaden Ivey from last year, but I still think he needs to give us a little bit more. But at the same time as me saying that, we still have Tobias Harris, who played a couple games here and there, but never really played all 5 games. Same with
Yeah.
Malik Beasley, same with Tim Hardaway Jr. The guys we brought in haven't played a whole lot yet, but that's just because JB's kind of trying to save them a little bit, save them some energy, get them conditioned and ready to go for the start of the season. So who's to say what? I mean, I would love this Jaden Ivey going forward. I think this is Jaden Ivey we're going to get. But until we see what everyone else does around him as a full unit, that's really what comes into like, okay, do we need to see more out of Ivy here and there? Or are we fine leaving him the way he is right now? I
Yeah.
still think there's always room for improvement in any area of your game, whether it's you're becoming a little bit more efficient from three, a little more pass heavy, looking to get hand the ball off or
Hmm.
look for your shot or whatnot. I think Ivy, there's always not just Ivy in particular, but I think with everyone, there's always a level that you can upgrade your game in. And so I think we really need to see the full unit in action before we can really say, okay, Ivy, you need to step up here a little bit more. Um,
Yeah.
but I think JB can unlock that because JB, one of my favorite quotes from this offseason from him is just what he wants to do with Cade Cunningham, what he wants to do with Jaden Ivey, what he wants to do
Yeah.
with Jalen Duren. Those three in particular, he made note of. He called them out. He's like, "Hey, this is what I want to do with them to elevate their game to a whole nother level."
Hmm.
And JB's had a lot of success. Like Donovan Mitchell in Utah was fantastic, but Donovan Mitchell in Cleveland is even better than in Utah. And you're going like, how is that even possible? Like he's already a great player, an all-star caliber player in Utah, and then all of a sudden he's even more than an all-star caliber player in Cleveland. And it's just that dynamic of what JB Bickerstaff kind of evolved Mitchell's game out of is I'm going to try and elevate you no matter how much it
Right.
may be because everyone has room for improvement. Darius Garland, from the time he first started out in Cleveland until JB got there, like he was like, yeah, okay, that's pretty good. He's pretty good. And then JB gets there and it's a whole nother player. He's playing at all-star caliber basketball. I think
Hmm.
JB can do that with Jaden Ivey. I think he can do that with Cade Cunningham, etc. He loves getting the most out of his players. And even if right now we're saying preseason form for Jaden Ivey is fantastic, I think it can be stellar towards the end of the season. And I think he's the right guy to get the most out of Jaden Ivey.
Yeah, in previous seasons with Jaden, the Pistons have lost so many games that we didn't really know how to address what we want from Jaden Ivey. I guess what we really wanted just was to see wins. So I think if the Pistons start racking up some wins and start competing with these tough Eastern Conference teams, we'll be able to address more of what we need from Jaden Ivey. And if he starts meeting that early, we're going to be very happy with his play. But then if Pistons start winning, we see what we see out of him now. As the second man, you're the kind of guy that needs to adapt to what the team needs. And I think we're going to see that out of Jaden Ivey. And we obviously know he has a great work ethic. So I think he's going to be able to step up to the task. Yeah, time will tell, obviously, but that's where my mind is kind of at right now. Make sure to comment below your thoughts on Jaden Ivey's performances during the preseason and where he fit with the Detroit Pistons. We're going to talk about one more player that stood out for the Pistons during the preseason, and then we are going to talk about two players that were on the disappointment end of the preseason. Not that we're worried, but players that we want to talk about and what we see and what we need to see for him to take the next step. The next player we are going to talk about as far as standouts during the preseason is Ron Holland. He played in all 5 games, which was great, being able to stay healthy through the first 5. What we really saw from Ron Holland isn't that any of his stats are really like jaw dropping. He doesn't score 30 points. He doesn't, get 12 rebounds. He doesn't get 3 blocks. He's not like outstanding statistically, but the energy he brought to the Detroit Pistons, especially against the Bucks in the preseason opener, was just astonishing. He came off the bench. He ended up playing 25 minutes, had 10 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block. Now, the reason I was so impressed is because the Pistons' first unit came out against the Bucks and they struggled. They were slow. They were trying to find their rhythm, didn't know where to go if they needed to start on the defensive end to get the energy going or to start on the offensive end. Ron Holland comes in around 6 to 7 minutes into the game and he's just ball hawking. He's all over the place. He's getting monster dunks. And we just seem to have an energy from him right from the get out. And I think when we drafted Asar Thompson, we were kind of hoping he'd be that kind of like that energy guy, that Dennis Rodman, that kind of feel that, Dennis added to the teams he played on. But I think it's going to be Ron Holland, right? I'm so impressed with his just well, one, he's speedy fast. He gets down the court in like 3.1 seconds. It's incredible. He gets those big monster dunks that gets the team riled up. but it's not just highlights, Ryan. It's those steals, it's those blocks, it's those nice passes down low to Jalen Duren and letting him go to work. He just kind of does the right things while being able to rally the team, Ryan.
Yeah, he does a little bit of everything, and he's okay not being the guy that's scoring all the time. He's okay not being the guy that's just being the highlight reel. He wants to do everything he can. And also, I want to make note, he's not afraid to get into someone's face. He did that the other night. It was against the Bucks. Nope, Suns, I believe. Oh yeah, Suns with Damian Lee. That
Yep.
was pretty good. I like that. But
Yeah.
no,
He
that's
gets
something that
up.
Asar Thompson wouldn't do. Asar is more on the quiet side. He's more on the reserve side.
Yeah.
But to have a player in Ron Holland that's gonna be gritty, that's gonna not be afraid to back someone down and be up in their
Yeah.
grill. Like we haven't had a player like that in a while. He brings a whole new energy to this team. Now, I will say there is a difference between this and Stu punching Drew Eubanks last year. One is harmful to the team, and the other is beneficial to the team.
Totally.
But if Stu and Ron Holland are out there at the same time, watch out because I think that would
Yeah.
be not only hilarious at times, but also like, okay, this is pretty darn good. It's entertainment really, not just
Yeah.
basketball. But no, what Ron Holland showed us was exactly what I wanted to see out of him. I wasn't expecting him, again, like I mentioned, I wasn't expecting him to go out there and just put on a clinic from three or just shoot lights out or anything like that. I was expecting him to be everywhere on the court. And that's what we got against the
Yeah.
Bucks. And that's what we've got in a lot of different ways just from him. And just he's the same player right now that we saw with the G League Ignite and the same
Hmm.
player we saw in high school. He's evolved a
Very.
little bit with his game from time to time. He's grown up, but at the same time, his game hasn't really changed all that much. And to
Hmm.
me, that's great because it shows he's consistent. He doesn't need to have all this pressure on him to be great. He can just be good in his own way. And against the Bucks, he stood out. Against the Pacers, he stood out. Against all the teams we played against in the preseason, he has stood out. And if we get this off the bench on a regular basis, I am ecstatic. In my opinion, he does not need to start. If he's this beneficial off the bench in his
Agreed.
rookie year, we're having great things happening for the Pistons. If we
Hmm.
can get consistent play like this off the bench, good things happen. And that it doesn't even matter if it's Ron Holland or not. It could be anyone giving us this off the bench where it's smooth sailing. We look back at a couple of years ago, Marvin Bagley off the bench, you're going like, okay, we just need him to be consistent.
Hmm.
And it wasn't anything spectacular because he was inconsistent. And being inconsistent hurts you in the NBA. And if Ron Holland can do this, we're great.
Well, and Ron Holland is just so ballsy for a rookie. Like most rookies in the preseason aren't trying to chase down block Damian Lee or like for example that he just like has a no filter on the basketball court and that sometimes is taken negatively, but for the Pistons, it's refreshing. We saw Isaiah, like you mentioned, we saw Isaiah Stewart kind of have that same energy, but kind of put it in the wrong way. I want Ron Holland not to have to worry about like what's trash talking and everything. Just play ball, dude, and that's just what he does, and he plays it at a high level from what we've seen so far. I've been reading a lot of quotes from JB Bickerstaff because unlike Monty Williams, he loves just talking up his players, loves just basketball. And it's kind of refreshing to me as a Pistons fan just to have a guy that just loves bragging about his players, loves the basketball environment. And so I want to read a quote to you guys about Ron Holland from JB Bickerstaff. Quote, he was awesome, Bickerstaff said. He came in and to be his first NBA game, he was impactful in changing the game and lifting the energy. He just knows how to impact a basketball game. You don't have to call plays for Ron, but somehow or some way, He goes to impact the game in a positive way, end quote. I mean, come on. Is there any better quote from a coach about a rookie in only the first 5 preseason games? That's just great. And it's great that JB Bickerstaff has been able to notice and kind of put Ron Holland on, a stepping stone to kind of be like, Ron, here's your all your respect and just adoration and adoration, and that's just great. And what's interesting to me is, you mentioned about him coming off the bench, and you'd be happy about that. I'm hard. It's hard for me to know like where to come from there, because what we have been seeing so far is having Tobias Harris play at the 4, and obviously Duren at the 5. I think the 3 position, the forward position, is kind of out there for the Pistons. I think it's up for grabs. We're going to be talking about, Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. I think obviously they may be favorites. Simone Fontecchio, if you want to really go with a tall starting lineup. A couple other options, but Ron Holland, let me go back to this first. What we saw with Jalen Duren last season is he came off the bench for around the first month, and he was just so impactful. It was hard to keep him out of the first unit just because of what he could offer for the first unit. And I think that may be what the Pistons do with Ron Holland after he kind of gets his wits about him, maybe after the first 20 games, finding himself at the starting 3 position. I think him and Jaden Ivey could offer an explosive, transition offense that the NBA, it's hard to replicate into today's NBA. So that's just kind of my first thoughts of what I kind of suspect happening with Ron Holland. Obviously, it's going to be kind of a hard decision for JB Bickerstaff, but time will tell. Couple of things I noticed from preseason that I wanted to mention. We talked about many, many months ago, Ryan, about how we need to see Jalen Duren start bullying some of these big men in today's NBA, whether it's Julius Randle to Karl Anthony Towns, or to what we actually saw in the preseason to Jarrett Allen. When I was watching that Cavs game and watching him go up against Jarrett Allen is known to be a player that just exposes the Detroit Pistons and their defense. He always goes off when we play him. But what we saw in the preseason is Duren making hook shots over him, backing him down, really putting up a good fight under the rim when Jarrett Allen is trying to back him down. I really like what I saw from Jalen Duren. There's nothing like specific stats that really stand out necessarily for Duren, but it was really his one-on-ones that impressed me the most. And to see him really compete with Jarrett Allen really showed me, and it made me feel a lot of emotions of like, okay, this is what we see. Ryan, from what you saw with Jalen Duren, where's your head at? Is he where you suspected him to be, or is he, kind of exceeding your expectations per se?
So last year against the Heat, when we went down for our annual Detroit trip, we got to witness Jalen Duren and Bam Adebayo go into work against each other.
Yeah, yeah.
And the first game was like, okay, that was pretty solid, Duren. The second game, Bam just destroyed him. And one big takeaway from us was that Duren needs to step up. He still there's a lot of work he needs to get done still. And then what we saw this preseason, a lot of that work got done. He's improved a lot more than what he was at to end the year last year. And that's exciting. It's like Ivy. And the same conversation with Ivy is we're having with Duren right now, is they've improved a lot. And just from the point of the end of last year through summer till now, they've improved. Duren got invited out again with the U.S. select team, and he put on a clinic. He was awesome. There was not a lot Team USA could do to necessarily stop him from time to time. And we also have to keep in mind, Duren is still very young. So the fact that he's still very young and he's just getting better every single year, I think that's exciting, because when you look at just what he did against Jarrett Allen, like you said, exposes us every single time. And obviously, Jared Allen isn't a premier big like a Bam Adebayo, etc. But Jared Allen is still a very good big in the NBA. He is definitely, in my eyes, one of the best ones by far. And that's solely because of JB Bickerstaff, actually, because Jared Allen in Brooklyn was pretty darn good. Not spectacular, not like, whoa, but he was good. Then comes to Cleveland, and JB Bickerstaff just unlocks his game even more, brings him to a whole nother level. Here we are, Jared Allen. I think what JB Bickerstaff has done with Jaden Ivey, he is doing the same thing with Jalen Duren. He's just slowly but surely elevating these guys' games to another level. And we are seeing that right before our eyes in just 5 games, training camp, and off-season work. These guys have improved from here all the way up to here. Like they've made a jump in their games. And Jalen Duren, if he can do this, what he did against Jared Allen on a consistent basis, following what he did to end the season last year, we are in great shape. And I don't want to give us too much hope or too much hype per se because we just came off 14 wins. Like there's not a high ceiling there. It's very low. But what we've seen in just a short period of time out of these two guys, I really feel like it's all because of JB Bickerstaff. Like you mentioned, he's hyping these guys up. He did it with Ron Holland. He's done it with Cade Cunningham. He's done it with Jaden Ivey. He's doing it with Jalen Duren. He's doing it with everybody on this team. It doesn't matter who you are. He's going to say something positive about them. And I think that's very good for them to hear, especially since you look back at last year, Monty Williams was not very positive. He was more so negative than positive in every single press conference. And then on top of that, like Monty was more of a reserve type coach, which there's never anything bad about that, but it just was like there was nothing there. And again, if we get what we've gotten in this first preseason slate with Duren and what he did against Allen for the whole season, on top of what we got, same thing with Ivy, again, smooth sailing.
So we need to talk about some of the things that were disappointing. That may be a little harsh, but some of the things that were a little under par from what Pistons fans and at least me were kind of hoping for. One of the first thing, a quick thing is, unfortunately, it kind of seems like Stewart is still struggling to protect the paint regularly. And a lot of the film I was watching over right before we recorded, it was just like, oh, he's gotten exposed to the last couple of seasons we've seen him play, and it's kind of difficult to watch. I don't know what it is. I don't know if he's small. I don't know if he's just not athletic, doesn't have the feel for the tempo. I'm not sure what it is. It just seems like when he's going up against a 7-footer, he just can't quite get the mark. But for a positive for Stewart is, his 3-point shot looked very good, and his offensive play is starting to come around and may become a big factor for the Pistons. One thing I wanted to mention is no word on Asar Thompson right now. Still not a full participant for the Detroit Pistons, minimal practicing, and obviously no play in any of the preseason games. He had the issues with the blood clots at the end of that last season, which ended his rookie season a little early. Basically, the NBA hasn't cleared him for play yet, and there hasn't been a word from the NBA on his clearance in the last couple of weeks. So there's no update. It's just that he's not playing, and when he does practice, it's very minimal. Stuff like no scrimmaging and stuff like that, more like one-on-one play or just like him working on certain technique things, but no like fast play scrimmages or defending on the ball real aggressive. It's still pretty minimal of what you would see a player coming back from any type of injury before weeks of playing. That's kind of what he's limited to right now. Quote from JB Bickerstaff: "It's unfortunate that he had to go through this," Pistons head coach JB Bickerstaff told reporters ahead of Wednesday's game against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Quote, "He wants to be a part of the team," end quote. So obviously JB Bickerstaff, Asar Thompson have been having some, conversations of Asar just kind of being upset that he can't play and that he wants to be back. But it's just the kind of thing where it's up to the NBA when they can totally finalize and know that he's going to be safe to play. Ryan, one of my worries, and it's kind of an issue, it's kind of a disappointment, but it's really a worry about Asar Thompson is knowing this, does that make you nervous about finding his role on this Pistons team? Because obviously, going through training camp, now preseason is done. That's very formative weeks of forming this Pistons team and players finding their roles. Does it worry you that when he comes back from injury, that it'll take him many, many weeks to find his role on this team?
I think we have every right to worry with that. You look at it from being in school. You miss a couple days because you're either sick or you were traveling, and then you come back and then you have a laundry list of things to get done, and it takes time to get back to that groove that you were in. The same
Totally.
thing applies here with Asar Thompson. I think not being able to fully participate is going to hurt him because he like Tim Hardaway Jr. as an example. He's having to guard him, and Tim is just blowing right past him left and right. Not saying that would actually happen because Asar is actually relatively good at defense. But like just the little missteps here and there, or learning the different concepts that JB Bickerstaff is trying to promote with new
Yeah.
play style, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, what he's looking for out of the guys. Obviously, he's able to listen and watch all these things happen, but it's a difference to watch it happen versus participating in that thing that's
Big
happening.
time. Mm-hmm.
And just obviously last year was his rookie year and he didn't get to play the last 20 games of the season. And usually in that situation, whoever you are, it doesn't matter if you're good or bad, these teams are playing those rookies those last 20 games and seeing what they can get out of them. And just the fact that Asar never got to go through that because of the blood clots, and then never got
Mm-hmm.
to do summer league this year because of the blood clots, and then never got to participate in training camp and preseason because of the same issue. He has missed a chunk of time that a lot of these rookies that are going from rookies to second year players have an opportunity to obtain. He just hasn't had that. So I think there is truly a right to be worried about Asar Thompson in this situation that he's in. But at the same time, I will say, like, what we want out of Asar Thompson, we've gotten so far out of Ron Holland in 5 preseason games, summer league,
Yeah.
etc. So
Yeah.
I will say, as much as we can be worried, we're pretty darn good right now in the position we're in because we made a lot of big moves in the offseason to acquire talent and acquire veteran players. And then Ron Holland comes in, Bobby Clinton comes in. Like, we're in pretty decent shape if we have to worry about Asar Thompson with the blood clots.
Mm-hmm. And any basketball player knows that when you're a freshman in high school, you're watching the varsity play on a Friday night, you're like, oh, this looks easy. I could handle it. I could handle it. Whatever, whatever. But then you get to your junior year, you're on varsity, and you're like, yeah, this is no joke. That is what Asar Thompson is going to go through. He's watching the practices go through the 5-on-5 scrimmages, watching Jalen. They're doing all these little intricacies. But then once Asar Thompson steps on that court, it's going to be a big wake up call. And he missed a lot of time where JB Bickerstaff, like you said, is instilling his core values and his core play style to this Pistons team that Asar Thompson, you can watch all the film in the world, watch all the practice in the world, but it's never truly going to prepare you for that speed that the NBA, that you need to succeed in the NBA. One other player I want to mention before we wrap up today's episode that was disappointing in a way was Tim Hardaway Jr. Obviously, he's a seasoned vet heading into his 10th season. And a lot of Pistons fans are happy to have him around, former Michigan player. His dad coached for the Pistons many, many years. So I think there's a lot of excitement around Tim Hardaway Jr., just knowing we have him on our team. But as far as the film we saw during preseason over 5 games, it was kind of like, oh, we didn't want to see that from him. We need him to be consistent. what we saw from him in 5 games is he shot 17% from the field and 11% from the 3-point range. Ryan, is this something to worry about, or is this something just to shake off and look forward to tonight's game against the Pacers and just kind of wipe away our memory?
I think this is something that we can just shake off. Yeah, he still plays at a high level and not necessarily is going to have the ball in his hands 24/7 because you have Tobias Harris, you have Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, etc. We have a cast that we can go off of. So I would say we can just shake this off. Obviously, it's preseason, and he's just getting used to playing with all these guys in more of a in-game situation than in practice, where in practice you're going up against your teammates. But in preseason games, it's you're going up against other teams. There may be a mismatch here and there. Just there's not much you can control. So I think this is something we can just shake off.
Yeah, I'm hoping that for sure because I think Tim Hardaway is going to prove to be a very essential player for this Pistons team. I'm hoping he can, add a little bit more than what Alec Burks gave us as far as just 3-point shooting, so that Malik Beasley can focus on the defensive end, not have to force that 3-point shot. Make sure to comment below your thoughts on the Detroit Pistons preseason 5 games. A lot happened, a lot different schemes to look at, and a lot of fun also, a lot of great highlights from this young Detroit Pistons team, a lot to look forward. I hope you all enjoy the Indiana Pacers game tonight, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. But first, make sure to like and subscribe. We will see you guys in episode number 2 of season 3. Peace.